It is Tuesday, June 30th, 2020. We're here talking about CTI, CTEF, and COVID-19. So we're about 3 months into the pandemic, 4 months really, probably more realistically, but I don't think we've had very much updates as far as other things that we've talked about last week. So really this week is a little bit more about just the main topic, talking about just sort of what you guys are doing, what sort of guidance, CTEF should or shouldn't be putting out there. And I'm genuinely curious, I'd like to hear from everybody, what sort of procedures they're putting into place, the reasoning behind it. If there's nothing, why not? How stringent you're being. Are you working that into your sales pitch, stuff like that? So I've put in the chat 2 links. One of them is to a PDF from OSHA about guidance for the construction workforce. I'm also going to post another link in here, which is preparing workplaces. This is a little bit more general, not necessarily for construction, but it's a pretty comprehensive document. It's 35 pages. And then the third link is actually OSHA's webpage on construction work in particular, and that's a great resource as well. And I'll also put in there the NTCA page on OSHA. So let me go ahead and put it out there for everybody. Anybody who's working right now, what are you guys doing as far as OSHA, or not OSHA, COVID safety, if anything? You can either digitally raise your hand or physically. Go ahead, Joe.
All right, so we're basically running everything. I know in parts of the country it's different. It's by beliefs and et cetera, but we're playing very, very neutral.
Okay.
Our clients, some clients are very lenient and some clients are very strict. So we're just keeping it balanced across the board, and whatever the NARI, North American remodeling industry, and the CDC recommends, we're abiding by those rules regardless. We're being very strict. Hand sanitizer before we walk in, mask at all times, partitions between the wall, creating negative air if they're inhabiting inside the home, if we're doing a remodel. What else is there? We have a portable john outside, so we're not using that over there.
Wow.
To keep the costs down. So we built a little shed and a disposable little bucket that solidifies. It's pretty cool. You can get that in REI. I think that we hit pretty much everything that's on the OSHA guidelines.
Man, that sounds pretty comprehensive. You're making your own toilet. That's pretty impressive. Now, you said that some clients are lenient and some are not so much. What sort of pushback are you getting from those who are pushing back about your protection?
Yeah, unfortunately, it comes off of political stance, unfortunately, but we don't get involved with that. We're neutral. So we want to be balanced, just to the fact that we have insurance. And due to the fact we're insurance, they can flick of a switch if God forbid, if somebody gets sick. We want to be protected. We're also doing thermometer tests on the client and as well as us before we enter the home. We document it before we get in. That's part of the insurance requirements. It's pretty rigorous. So we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's. And we're making sure they sign off on a document on a daily basis, because we can't control if they're going out or not. And the same thing with my guys as well. So
wow. That's really impressive. Thanks, Joe. So what about anybody else who's working right now? What are you guys seeing or doing? What's the sort of general response you're getting out there?
Can you let us know what state you're into when you're working?
Oh, yeah. Joe is in New Jersey. So go ahead, Matthew. Blood.
So I'm in Rhode Island. And early on, there was a lot of my work right now is new construction. Luckily, some of the remodel stuff we had lined up early got pushed back. But now, kind of as time's gone on, things are getting a lot more relaxed, and clients are not on edge as much with it. We do have one of the builders we're working for does have a wash station set up outside the house. So we wash hands, everybody washes hands before you come in. Masks are required on the site. As long as if you're in a room by yourself, which we typically are, bathroom or whatnot, we can take the mask off once we're in that room and set up. Other builders are really just kind of, leaving it up to us to do what we want to do. For the most part, their crews and whatever else are just working as if it was any other day. And I'm kind of, as the days goes on, it's getting more and more like that. We're seeing less and less requirements of people with masks and people doing this. It's basically, I think like Joe said, it's a political thing. We try to stay very neutral. Again, I have gloves, masks, hand sanitizer, the whole 9 yards. But a lot of times lately, I'm the only one doing it.
Yeah. That's very nice. So what are the numbers like in Rhode Island? Are they staying pretty much the same? Or are they rising or falling?
So we were much less than Massachusetts. We were less than Connecticut. So we've pretty much always been on the lower end in our area. And for me, personal perspective, my other job, I'm a full-time firefighter in EMT. Okay. So I see a lot of this. So I'm personally documenting my temperature daily because I have to for that job. Again, it's a lot of it, I think, is politically run, but like Joe said, I try to stay neutral on that. The virus is a very, very real thing. I'm not denying that by any, stretch of the imagination, but I think as long as you're, a healthy person and whatever, it's one of those things. And that's the way people are feeling. If you're healthy, we're probably going to be okay.
Okay.
That's where most people's stance is at this point, in my general area anyway.
Gotcha.
Just remember, us old people rely on you to wear masks, though, to protect us. Just remember that.
That's true.
Hey.
No, and like I said, I keep masks in the van for myself, for anybody that might be helping. And again, sanitizer the whole 9 yards, and we're absolutely being on the forefront with it. Like, we're wearing the mask. If someone tells us, we can take it off. The few jobs I do have lined up where it's a remodel type project, people are living in the homes. We won't even work in the house if they're we won't allow them into the room to review something unless we step out. We'll tell them what we want to look at, and then they go in, look at it, and, make a decision on which way they want to go. But we're completely keeping ourselves separate.
Gotcha. So that was going to be my next question, is if you guys in particular are maintaining social distance
100%.
and stuff like that. Gotcha. 100%. Okay. Very interesting.
And Matt, when I say things like that, Matt, I only mean when you're out in public, because when you're in a work site like that, it's completely different than being in a public setting or around other people. So.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I was kind of joking about that. Although I am old. So.
Go ahead, Oliver.
I'm in North Carolina. I think there's at least 2 others that are in North Carolina, and I'm not sure if we're the worst state, but I know we're up there with the highest numbers right now, and they're climbing. So it is supposed to be the law as of very recently that any public appearance requires a mask, but there have been some in law enforcement that have spoken out that will not be enforced by any kind of law enforcement. So we're finding that most people are still not wearing masks, even though it has been issued as mandatory. One thing that we have seen is that right now Lowe's and Home Depot are just an absolute zoo. There's 60, 70 people in line throughout the cash registers all the time, all day. They're just packed with DIYer in the contractor side, everywhere. So we're trying to avoid the box stores altogether if possible, or we're getting there when they open the doors to try and stay away from the crowds. And then similar to what Matt was saying, that when if any interactions with our homeowners require us to break that 6-foot mark where we need them to be in the bathroom looking at something, everybody masks up. But once they're out of the room and it's just me and my wife working, we usually take the masks off at that point. So we save the masks for actual contact with anybody else. It's so hot here right now. We were struggling to wear our masks all day when it was just the two of us anyway. So we haven't been doing that, but we have been actively trying to avoid things like the box stores where there are just mass amounts of people. I think everyone's just bored. They're stuck at home looking at their projects that they like to do. So they're all at Lowe's and Home Depot throughout the day, just packed on top of each other.
Gotcha. So do you have anything in place, like sort of like an official routine that you're following, or are you just kind of playing it by ear day by day as far as what you're doing?
We don't have something official, which I'm interested to listen to what others are doing. We do have all of the necessary things with us. We have the hand sanitizer, masks, and what little gloves we have left. We're struggling to replenish our stock of nitrile because Harbor Freight and Home Depot are donating their stock, so there's none to be found there. But other than keeping ourselves safe, because our state seems so divided on whether to follow the direction or not, I haven't heard much as far as an official list of things that they'd like contractors to do. That may be something that is more accessible for someone bigger than me too. Maybe the larger companies are getting more pushback on that. We're just me and my wife.
Gotcha.
Not that we shouldn't be doing it, just we haven't had anything official come down that is being asked of us.
Okay. Jim, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just want everyone to know that if you go to the NTCA website, we have a coronavirus update right on the front homepage.
Mm-hmm.
And in there are guidelines on workspace and ideas on what you can do and even things you can copy and paste and give to your customers. So just so you're aware of that.
Yeah, and that's actually in the chat as well. So we also have OSHA's guidelines, one on preparing workplaces in general, one particularly for construction, their construction website guidance on COVID, and then the NTCA's COVID-19 page. All that's in the chat box as well. So does anybody else have any sort of programs or experiences that they're following? Go ahead, Jason.
Sorry I'm late.
All good.
It made me go through Google for some reason and sign up some account. So anyway, back to Zoom. So I ignored what I put on GTP because I was like, sorry guys, I can't make it because I can't join Zoom join fast enough. Anyway, in Indiana, we're real laid back. It's more of a choice. So my clients actually, before I took on my clients when this all took on, which is a job I expressed on GTP today that I'm stuck in, I can't get out. And so I've been there ever since it started. And I took 2 weeks off to prove to them that I'm good. And if they required a test, I would have done it just to keep myself rolling. But really, I think some of this is it's on yourself because the states aren't really mandating anything on contractors. And I haven't really found a state that's real thorough with contractors except like Michigan and a few of the states that are being turned into a joke at this point and hurting people like Charles Newcomb and people like that. So really, I think it's your own guidance to what you feel is going to protect your client. So the area of the house I'm in, they don't occupy and we don't cross paths. And I've been there long enough to where we have communication where we can be together. So I really think a lot of this is going to fall on our own backs. I don't think it's going to be a government mandated situation or necessarily contractors. I'm not sure, but
okay. So beyond the self-isolation that you did, like what's your day-to-day company's response to it? Are you just sort of playing it by ear? Do you have like a certain procedure, mask, gloves,
right.
sanitizer?
Because I'm in the environment I'm in where I'm already comfortable and I've been there for 8 weeks, it's a huge job, just so you know. I can't believe I've been there that long. But anyway, at this point, it's a trust factor because if I go to Menards, for instance, Menards is the only box store that's making you wear face masks. Home Depot, like you guys just said, it's a free for all. Lowe's, it's a free for all. But honestly, there's a lot of things that are happening, and I don't have to mention what it is. This should be causing spikes that are happening, but you get down to Florida and things like that, and they're getting spikes. So what does that say? I don't know, but honestly, what my daily regimen is I make sure I have sanitizer in my truck. I have it on my job site. I have masks when requested, and if they want a mask, I'm not offended.
Okay, very cool. Thank you. How about anybody else? Anybody else have any sort of response? Go ahead, Blood. What else do you have to add?
One thing I could add is, to the box stores and distributors, basically every public place we go into requires a mask here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
where you at?
Whether it's the grocery store or whether it's Home Depot or a tile distributor, pretty much anywhere you go, the coffee shop, they require a mask.
Yeah. So you're on the East Coast?
East Coast, Rhode Island, yeah, Northeast.
Yep, there you go. East Coast is lit up, so they can't do nothing. I mean, I get it. I respect it.
I mean, back to the thing with work, when you get to that more personal level where you're talking one-on-one with a client, it's very different than the broad range of what's going on.
Yep.
But
it's more of a choice.
Yeah. So, Jason, we're going to keep the discussion pretty much just on like the construction side of it. I don't want to get into the politics of it.
Sure.
So, Woody, I know last week you had talked about some of the stuff that you're doing. Would you mind outlining a little bit about what your sort of procedures are? Because I know you're kind of a different scale of operation than somebody like me, for example, or Oliver.
Well, we have a full. When this first hit, a lot of the 5-star contractors had gotten together, and we had to come up with some pretty intense policies right up front. From everybody I travel somewhat, and we've got people who travel, so we had to really kind of look at the different parts of the operations we had, from our logistics people to our crew people to our office people, and come up with each one had different levels of exposure. So we had to make different safety plans for each of those people that did different things in our offices, and that. Then we went from there. Now, the latest is OSHA's general guidelines. You're responsible if you have employees to keep them safe. So that means I have to supply PPEs. So we typically think of PPEs as those things that keep us safe, be it hard hats and that. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but that requires that we provide masks for everybody. We have a full mask program, because if somebody was to get COVID on your job site and when your employees, there is, although it's being debated quite vigorously amongst different circles, you potentially have liability there, and that. Most importantly, but I would think probably one of the biggest things I'm working on right now is how to keep all of us in a positive mental place, because I think we're all, and certainly myself, are worn out right now. The wind blows one way, and everything's become a spectator sport. You certainly can't. You've got to do your research every day, because you can't trust what's being put out there, other than to follow the guidelines about, put them in there, and try to interact and use the best you can to keep your people safe. I said it last week, and I'd say again. Have a game plan, because if it hits, you're not going to be in a position to really. You've got to have those plans in place, because when this does hit, and it potentially is going to hit you, you want to be able just to respond and not react. And that takes foresight and foreplanning. I truly don't believe this is over. I believe we're probably going to see waves of it in the future. I don't see a vaccine anytime soon. I hate to use this as a new normal, but right now it is a new normal, and I'm going to build a business based on the new normal.
That's right.
A really excellent point. So Woody brings up a really interesting point about the potential liability that opens up to us if we expose somebody, or if somebody gets exposed on the same site, let's say. Has anybody, I was trying to find some information on that today. I wasn't able to find too much specifically about exposure to coronavirus. I saw a lot of talk about liability in terms of delays in jobs, materials, increased costs in labor, etc. But I wasn't able to find too much specifically on exposure. What has anybody heard about that in particular if you expose somebody? Go ahead, Jason.
At this point, it's really tough to prove that situation. The tracking abilities, which just got introduced to your phones, is about it right now, and that just popped up. So honestly, the tracing situation is what's vital. And can it happen? Of course. I think that was a great point. I think that we should actually focus on some of that, because being ready for when they do mandate something, if you're not prepared, you're out of business until you're prepared. And if you're not prepared ahead of time, you may not be able to get the materials you need to be prepared. So I think that makes a very valid point, and I enjoy hearing that. So to you, I commend hearing that, because that helps me a lot, because it makes me think ahead. So
Yeah, I particularly like what Woody said, respond, don't react.
right,
Have
exactly.
something in mind.
Yeah.
Does anybody else know, especially some of our more experienced, Martin, I don't know if you've heard anything about this with regards to liability on stuff like that?
Yeah, we're exclusively on commercial sites, and all of our sites are requiring temperature checks to get on the site every day, mask 100% of the time, social distancing. The one thing we're doing, and most of our customers are allowing us this, is we're requiring them to give us space where we don't have other trades interfering with us during the day. Which is kind of nice, because in the commercial world, you usually have people, electricians on ladders working over your head, and sheetrock guys trying to, sand the drywall and all that while you're trying to put tile in. So it's really kind of actually helped us a lot. It may slow down construction just a little, but I think most of our jobs are not experiencing any major delays because of this. But as far as liability goes, I think it's important, and I think the guidelines that we're following are, it's important that if we have anyone with symptoms, that we notify the general contractor immediately, and we get them tested immediately, so that and we remove them from the site until their test results come back. And we may end up removing that whole crew depending on their proximity, if they're working out of town and they're all staying in the same hotel together or whatever. So I think that's the important part. And the GCs are doing a pretty good job of notifying us if there has been anyone on the job test positive. They're getting that information out pretty quickly. And some general contractors are shutting the job down if there's one positive test, and having a crew come in and sanitize the whole job, and then reopen it. Some GCs are waiting until there's 3 or 4 or 5 people test positive, and then they shut it down. So it's, different GCs are kind of responding a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
So far, we've not had anyone test positive, and we've not had any layoffs or slowdown. We've been fully employed since day one. Yeah, and in our office, we're following the same protocol. We're taking temperatures every day. We've got the staff is rotating on a 5-day basis, work from home, work from the office. So we got about half the people in the office on any given day.
Now, Martin, one more question on that. Like, as far as your crews, because I know you guys have a ton of different crews out there, but are you guys documenting those temperature checks and everything? And
yeah, they have to
be.
Actually, the general contractor usually has medical personnel on the job, and they have at the gate, and they actually take the temperatures and record it. And they most jobs now have a ID card or something to gain access to the project.
Okay.
So they assign everybody a number, so they're keeping track with it that way.
Interesting. So that
Can
might
I
be
ask one thing?
something that might be good, something good for a lot of us to do. It's simple. Is just keep a log of your temperature at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day when you leave the site. That's something that having that sort of documentation and also having a plan written up, a procedure that you follow day to day. If anything should happen, that might help protect you. Go ahead, Woody.
Joseph, what we introduced was we invested in it's not extremely expensive, but every morning at about 6 a.m., a text goes out to our people. We went out and purchased I don't know, you put it at your forehead. You don't have to put it on your tongue.
Oh, yeah.
And that, and we gave them to all our personnel. They basically take a picture of their temperature, and we make them, this is an important point, especially, you have to self-certify that you're able to come to work every day. And this is partly to identify us in a sense, because if you're saying you haven't been around somebody that you aren't aware, or at least to your awareness, that your temperatures aren't there, and then that text acts as that program will actually document the daily part of it. That opens up another rabbit hole. If you employ people, I would have to, which became a big lawsuit out in California as we were putting the program and running it through our lawyers, that you have to make sure you're paying for your people's cell phone time. If your people are using their cell phone, then they have to be compensated to some extent in that. So it opens up another, it's obviously going to add cost to business that we're obviously not getting right now, but we've got to start thinking about in the future, because masks aren't cheap right now. And, I think we bought about 5,000 here the other day. We paid a fairly good amount for them, but we stockpiled.
Gotcha. That's very interesting. I like that idea. Hello, Aaron. Jason, did you have something you wanted to add?
Really quick, and I'll shut up. But what are we going to do when we have an asymptomatic person on our crew? I mean, that in itself is a whole different category. It's like, okay, so you've been through it, you've had it, but maybe you're susceptible again real quick. So if we have an asymptomatic person on our crew, do we fire them? Do we lay them off? What do we do?
So
you don't fire them unless you want a lawsuit.
Yeah.
No. Well, I get that. Sorry.
You better go back you got to go back and look at the CARES Act, because it does it doesn't matter if you employ one person now, the CARES Act comes into play.
So it's unemployment.
Yeah, no, it can't, not necessarily, but depending on which way it comes at you, it has different ways you have to follow. And TCA does have that stuff up on their site. It's not, I would say, there's a proverb that says a good man gets wise counsel, and I'll promise you, I've spent the money with my lawyers to make sure we've got that we're handling it, because it's very confusing. I won't say it isn't.
Yeah.
And certainly, if you think ANSI can get confusing, get the lawyers involved.
Well, it's good. It's good to hear from you, because I like the information is valid right now. I mean, we need to hear these things big time.
And Jason, I just want to clarify something real quick. There's a difference between somebody who's asymptomatic, which means that they have the virus, but they're not exhibiting any symptoms, or somebody who is recovered, and somebody who is a carrier but isn't infected. So those are kind of separate things. And all of those, part of the big issue with coronavirus is that because it's new, a lot of the answers of if somebody has immunity, how long does it last? How long are you shedding for? All of that stuff. They're still investigating it. And so there's still a lot of things that they're learning about it. So there's not really a hard and fast rule, but like Woody said, you can't just fire them. But you definitely need to look into what your responsibilities are as an employer.
And I figured the firing thing was a little far, but I'm just saying, where do we go? Because this topic is huge in our industry because actually in a state like myself, which we've discussed in Indiana, the regulation here is like zip. I mean, it's all in your hands. And
Yeah.
so the liability aspect of that is a big deal.
Now, Aaron, let me ask you real quick, because you guys are having quite a spike and you are recovered now. What is your company doing for COVID? Have you changed anything since you guys caught it, or like what are you guys up to?
You know, it's really ridiculous because what we've been doing for our field staff, we have certain protocol. We have everybody we work with, like we're on a couple of university jobs right now, working as the general contractor. So we're having to implement how all trades are, zap them every morning with the temperature. It's documented in our project management system. If they have a fever, we immediately send them home. You know, we've been doing that. The ridiculous part is I'm the one that got sick, and I got 2 girls in the office sick.
Oh.
What's interesting is my symptoms hit me Thursday night. Like, I did not feel sick until Thursday, and it was like a bad 2-3 day headache. And we're good, right? It was done. So I was asymptomatic when I was a carrier because the girls were all running temperatures and super sick on Monday. So that's the scariest part. Like, you don't know if you're spreading it prior to you getting sick. And I feel terrible. I mean, I'm good, but those girls they aren't back to work yet, you know? I'm in San Antonio with like one of the highest obesity rates and really unhealthy people. One of them has asthma. She can't shake her fever. She can't, I mean, it's been a lot. But that's a project manager and a project coordinator that can do work remotely. Like,
right,
we're screwed if we lose our guys in the field. So we've been super, super careful with them and kind of ignored ourselves in the office. And then, you know, jackass Aaron got everybody sick.
So just real quick, what are your guys' protocol on in the field?
6 feet apart. We have hand sanitizer everywhere, mask. Tools are cleaned at the very beginning of the day, at lunch, and at the very end. That's a part of the apprentice's responsibility. You know, just like we make them wash their hands. It's so ridiculous. Like, not even hand sanitizer. Like, no, I know you didn't. I know that wasn't 20 seconds, George. Get your ass back in there. Try again.
Let me smell them. Let me smell them.
Yeah. Okay.
So, you know, it's tough, guys, because we know how it is. It's going to become lax. People are going to get pissed off in San Antonio, Texas, and we don't have the air rolling in these dorms, and you know how it is. Like it's if they're gonna take their masks off and put themselves at risk. I mean, thankfully I have Trinity leading the way, right? He's not a drill sergeant. He's a good leader. He cares about people. It's like, hey man, if we lose you, we're all in this together. Like, one guy goes down, it's detrimental to everything we're doing. So really kind of explaining to the younger generation to be diligent, and really, I think, you know, just people in leadership not bullshitting and grab passing about it. Sorry if you're on here, but it's
choppy.
You know, this is serious. Yeah. By the way, y'all are all terrified because Aaron disappeared for 2 weeks, right? Like, this is happening. I'm the only person I know, right?
So,
that had it. That was weird. That was
Aaron,
weird. And
let me ask you one more question.
It's probably from my wife. That's a firefighter in Houston. I mean, dragging all this shit in. It had to have been from Kim.
Hey, Aaron, let me ask you one more question then. What sort of pushback are you getting on the sites where you guys are running as GCs from other trades?
That would have to be a question from Trinity, because if I don't hear about it, it's not a problem.
Okay.
He handles it. If it became a problem, he would let me know. But I mean, he has carte blanche over operations, so everybody knows if you piss off the cowboy, you're out of here. So it's not, it's that.
Yeah. Now, Scott,
happening.
did you have something that you wanted to add? I thought I saw your hand up, Scott. Oh, okay, gotcha. So
actually, Joe, I would like to point
please, Mike.
something out. If and Martin, with the size of your company, you may be a little bit aware of what happens when somebody does test positive. You're basically supposed to try to do some tracking, find out who they've been in close contact with, notify those people, but you can't go and tell the people who it is. You have to, that's to stay confidential, but you have to tell them someone in our company has tested positive and they've been in close contact with you, and you could recommend them to get tested elsewhere. There are in some areas like in industries, when people have tested positive, they're to go home and get paid for 2 weeks while they're self-isolating. I don't know if that applies in the construction industry, though.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder.
It's so crazy.
I wonder if that's something that would be specified in the CARES Act, or if that's something that's state by state.
While we're talking, I've been trying to look all that up, and I
gotcha.
can't find anything that says if it's required or not. But I only know that my son actually runs for a large company, and he's in charge of when they open their plant back up. He was in charge of all the testing and bringing the employees back, and these are some of the things that they've had to go through.
Oh, gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you.
You can't even quantify the overhead for that. Like, it's almost intangible, right? Like, it's a whole other HR department at this point. I mean, it's so disruptive to your day-to-day operations that you almost need another full-time staff member just to focus on safety and health. It's crazy.
Let's go to Ollie, and then we'll go to Joe.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ollie.
I was just thinking about something that we've talked about a couple of times, is if you do some research on what you're looking for in yourself. We're talking as a small company with just the two of us. If you start to look at what am I looking for in myself to kind of be an early warning sign, and you read some of the symptoms like feeling tired, feeling like you're getting sick, the flu-ish, like we've had that discussion that we feel like that every single day. I mean, you might have COVID or you might be a tile contractor. Like, when do you not have, like, come home feeling exhausted? And we were just talking about how that can make it difficult for people, especially blue collars, to be able to even detect those early symptoms. So really all we have is trying to get ahead of it, whether it's mandatory or not, whether the homeowners may tell you it's not necessary or not. Like, that's really all we have with all the question marks surrounding this whole thing, is to try and be doing everything that we can to get ahead of it. Because most of what we're hearing is once you realize you have it, it's really too late. There's just no way to backtrack far enough to know where you might have gotten it or who you might have given it to. So the main offense and defense that we have is to try and be sanitizing everything that we can, trying to isolate ourselves. We're going straight home from work when we're finished. It's been said in a couple different ways that when it's left up to you, it's going to have, the responsibility is going to fall on you too, based on what decisions you make.
Yeah, that's a good point. Go ahead, Joe.
So right now, a lot of this information that we're doing to document, the whole process, who's been infected, and et cetera, and then you're trying to track back who initiated and whatnot. Realistically, the way it's going, and I gotta admit with Jason what he said, contact tracing is gonna come here. Your phones are gonna probably have to be on with Bluetooth. they're gonna take it in their hands. They're creating industries out of contact tracing. Austin just came out with a contract that just came out. New York City has one. New Jersey just launched one. They're hiring thousands of people to proceed with this. So it's a matter of time before this takes control and tracks us.
It doesn't take much more time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It sucks. Good point, though.
Yeah, for us, it does take a lot of time. Our safety director has been on the road. He's not flying, but he's driving, and he's burning up the road, going from job site to job site to try and keep up with that. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And one thing I forgot to mention that we did at the very beginning is all of our employees, didn't matter if they were field or office, if they were in high risk categories, if they had diabetes or had cancer or any kind of lung issues or whatever, we sent them to their doctor, got their doctor to give us a notice. And we've had them either working from home or at home the entire time, and still on the payroll.
Wow.
Nice.
That's great. So with all that being said, I've noticed some sort of common themes throughout the response that kind of individual companies are having as well as your areas. One of them is nobody's trying to get political with their clients, which I think is probably a smart thing.
Very smart.
And then the other theme that I'm sort of noticing is like whatever our personal beliefs are, to try to follow what we can, right? So in line with that, a lot of us have mentioned masks and PPE. What is everybody doing for PPE? Are you having trouble finding masks, gloves, sanitizer, stuff like that? I know Woody mentioned that he's trying to stockpile.
I'll give you a funny thing. The sanitizer right now, you can't get Perel, which I would love to get a hold of. The sanitizer we have right now is apparently being distilled, and what was a bad night in Chicago for me, but it's being distilled in Jose Cuervo out of tequila. So every hand sanitizer or disinfectant seems to have a tequila, which is just making everybody real happy. You know, it's all saying that, no, officer, I wasn't drinking. I was just cleaning my hands.
What's the branding on that hand sanitizer? It's called Bad Decision.
Well, I mean, if you get it, I mean, what we're getting, whether it be through, you know, global, we do a lot with global industrial, some of those people, everything. And I actually said, look, see if we can get it from somewhere else. And they bought a new type today that came in. It'd been distilled out of the tequila barrel, apparently. So I'd love to find Perel again if I could.
You know, I think a lot of local alcohol companies, like there's a distillery here in Greenville that they've started distilling ethanol, just so they can start producing hand sanitizer.
Anybody that can make money off this right now, they are, like all the fiberglass, but the plexiglass enclosures. When this first started, I said, man, you know, we could open up a plexiglass company right now and make a killing, and then 2 weeks later everyone's doing it. So you know, they're everywhere there's a problem, there's a prosperous money maker. But the unfortunate thing is we have to be diligent, and I think that these meetings are very important, that we stay in touch with each other. And how you're handling it on the East Coast, which I know is bad, and Michigan's bad, and Indiana, we're real lax. So, but as we spike, we're going to see more things happen, I think. So we knew we were going to spike when we started opening up. So, and I'm surprised, and again, other activities that are happening around the nation, I'm surprised haven't caused a spike. So they thought the heat and humidity would kill it. Did it? No, because where's the worst spot right now? Florida, southern, humid, hot. You know.
So Jason, sorry to interrupt you. How are you doing? How are you doing on PPE? Do you have masks? Do you have gloves? Stuff like that?
Here's the thing. So it's who you know sometimes, and we have a lot of family in the health industry. So we have actually the NP95 mask.
Okay.
So they're always readily available for anyone that works for me. And I'll tell you one thing right now, and what I've learned from today is don't say it's your choice to wear this mask in this residence. Wear this mask in a residence. And then if they don't, I told them to. And that's liability. So I've taken away that from this meeting right there. So that's a big deal.
That's a good point. So sourcing PPE, it's pretty tough. I posted on I think in TCA page the other day asking where people were getting some. Some things are coming back in stock, certain brands of like gloves and stuff. I know that there are some suppliers on other Facebook groups who they've been importing masks. That's where I've been ordering KN95s, which for those who don't know, they're almost as efficient as N95s, and there's an emergency usage authorization from the FDA that they can be used in medical applications, and so they're very high efficiency. And I believe that they're almost as protective for silica and stuff like that. So that's something that if you're looking, N95 or KN95 is something. I know Costco has the medical masks as far as just safety, interpersonal safety. Costco, I think they have them. If they have them in your area, they had I think they're like 40 masks for $20 or something like that. So it's not cheap, but it's also not crazy expensive. I think right now I'm paying around $350 a mask for KN95s.
Nobody's going to be cheap in a high demand issue. So
exactly.
we're gonna get railed on anything to do with this, and that's just how it is. So if it's our business, we're the same way. So
I think it's important for you guys. One, networking like this is really important. So reach out if you know somebody if you know a reliable source. Reach out to somebody nearby, see if they need them, or that's how I found gloves the other day. I ordered a case of 500 gloves just because I was afraid I wouldn't be able to find them later when I needed them. So, but all that being said, you got to keep hunting unless you can find a really reliable source, and just kind of keep checking back. It's important. So did anybody else have anything that they wanted to add as far as this goes? Go ahead, Aaron. I muted you because I was hearing your doors. You have to unmute yourself. Wait, I can't hear you. You'll have to unmute yourself, Aaron. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know Matt Wolf owns Tileport. Woody, I think you do. We use him a lot for all sorts of projects. He's a really good resource that specifically in the tile and stone trade, he has made an effort to make sure that he can be a resource for gloves and masks. So if you guys don't know him, the wonderful guy, I would advise if you're having a hard time finding something or it just be stupid expensive to reach out to him.
That's a great point. I think he's got a website called SaveTheScarves.com. I'm going to put that into the chat.
Go to Tileport. He's on the ASTM committee. He also has he's an angel. He does like volunteer CPR apps. He's like a brilliant guy. He does lots of stuff. But
you said Tileport?
Tileport.
Tileport.
Like the tile comes in through the port.
Gotcha.
Hey, Joseph, why don't you put his phone number on there for his business? It's 310.
Oh, there we go. 310.
405 9013.
And
his email is matt@tileport.com. 2 T's.
Gotcha. So I'm going to have to I put in tileport.com, but I was not able to pull up the website. So I don't know, maybe they're over bandwidth or something. But I know he also runs SaveTheScarves.com. I think Brad Denny had pinged him the other day on that post that I mentioned. So they're a good, reliable source for KN95s as well. So so on a personal note, like the numbers here have been like hitting new records almost every day here in South Carolina. So my company personally, I'm actually finishing up a job, and then I'm suspending operations for a few weeks until my local government starts to do something to manage it, because here at least everybody is ridiculous. If you go downtown, it's like there's nothing different at all. So that's a personal decision that I've made, but it was really, really interesting, really valuable to see all the different perspectives here and the different strategies. One thing that I've taken away personally, and I think that a lot of us smaller guys, especially learning from you more successful companies, is documentation, having a procedure, having a plan, and planning for when things may or may not get worse. But like Woody said, I think I might get that on a t-shirt, Woody. Respond, don't react.
Before they come back.
I think that's a really valuable lesson to sort of apply. Aaron, I'm going to mute you again.
That's a life lesson. That's not even just for COVID. That's for all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I might need to get that on a tattoo, Woody. But all things being told, like we said earlier, whether you believe in it or not, and whether politically you're one way or the other, none of that matters as far as from a business perspective. It's good business to practice this sort of safety measures. For one, it'll set a good precedent and a good reputation for your company, and it sort of continues to push that sort of standard that we try to look at in general with our construction. But this is a new situation, and ignoring it hasn't seemed to work for a lot of people. So unless anybody else, go ahead, Paige. I'm sorry, I just saw your hand.
Yeah, got a question for all the installers. So are you guys advertising that maybe if you have like air scrubbers, or are you putting out any new ads, advertising like, hey, we sanitize everything, like we even have air filters that can scrub your air, stuff like that? I know there's a company working in my neighborhood, and they have some sort of MDF cleaner that the Sandia government labs use. It's kind of cool. I don't know. It's something to look into, to buy. You put it in and like spray the room down. Do you think that would be beneficial in still getting jobs during all this?
That's a really interesting point. Joe, you look like you approve. What do you think?
But it all goes down to providing confidence with your clientele. If you educate through, and you can do that through social media, depending on the service that you provide to specific persons, you got to cater to those. So what we did was we did a social media blast, and as well as an email advising our past and present and future prospective clients on the precautions that we're taking, provided by the CDC, NARI, et cetera, et cetera. If they have any concerns or any issues that they had, with our prior work, or they need, some maintenance on it or whatever it may be, or for future projects, that actually gives the clients more confidence. So as long as you address, A, B, C, D, we've gotten plenty of calls from that. We're not seeing any downtick whatsoever. We're actually seeing a huge uptick after doing that. You just got to market yourself correctly, and you have to adapt like a chameleon. It's just, it's going to be here with us, like Woody said. It's going to be here. This is going to be the new normal, unfortunately. You just got to adapt, and being a business owner, it's all about adaptation.
And I think, Paige, what you're talking about. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask, would any of you guys be interested in knowing that super duper heavy duty sanitizer cleaner? Apparently it's kind of affordable. I can post it later on in the Facebook group.
Do it.
Yeah. Jason, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, and what Joe was saying, Joe, correct? It makes a lot of sense, because honestly, there's really no way to do it. It's not like the state is saying you have to offer these services to get this job. So adapt, be a chameleon. And that's part of what we do, as not only do we execute the job, but you have to sell your work. You have to sell your work in a way that's going to present to the client the way they want to hear it. And if you feel that client wants to hear, I want all the safety precautions necessary to protect everybody. Okay, then that's what we're going to do that.
Yeah.
So having a cleaning company come in, if that's what it's got to take to get a $65,000 job, well, guess what? I'm going to take $300-400 and bring in a crew, no doubt. So that made a lot of sense.
Go ahead, Aaron. You're muted, by the way.
Not okay. We just put an ad in the paper. They did a big special for advertising for us to focus on the residential side of business, just for like what Paige asked. And I totally stole this from this stupid home mag thing that I get because I loved the logos and I wanted to show y'all a couple. It was just now offering virtual estimates. Just these little like brands that they put on here that I really liked, that where's the other one? There's another really good one. We follow CDC guidelines. Now offering no contact estimate service, whatever. I was like, that is freaking brilliant. I love that. So I totally stole it better.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think to what Joe was talking about too, anything that you can sell that shows I am going above and beyond for you, people are going to love that. People will respond to it. So if you live in a high risk area with a lot of spiking cases, and you say, hey, here's what we're doing. We're putting cleaner in. We're doing this. We're doing that. The job may take longer, but every day we're doing what we can to make you safe, and that gets you jobs for sure. It's selling that confidence, the same as in normal times the way that we sell assemblies. It's going to be, I think, the same thing. And I think taking that into account, I think the people who start being aware of that confidence and that safety that people want to feel from their contractors coming in, I think that those are the ones who are going to weather this out much stronger than those who didn't.
You just have to live it. And like Joe said, my business has doubled since the coronavirus. It's doubled without me advertising anything about safety. I can't believe it. I'm excited, but at the same time, it's a little overwhelming. So, I mean, it is what you make of it, and we have to make of the best of it. So we are in the new future.
Yeah. Go ahead, Aaron.
One thing that we have a project coming up. We're trying a new concept, and I know Dan's been working on this in Michigan in a different way, but we have a lot of 3x3 showers that have veterans in them. Big shower failure, big mess. Anyway, so we do a lot of gauge porcelain slabs, and the whole concept was, how can we get in and out of there as fast as possible, right? To reduce the risk of our staff with every other thing out there. So on this project, we're trying to make it as completely modular as possible and efficient in terms of, not everything's perfect. We're demoing to the CMU, but really going in there on a QC. Like I have just a QC guy that's going to come in and make sure that our tolerances are there and actually like measure before we mobilize every single shower. That way, if we're a quarter inch off here or there, we can adjust for movement joints. But we think that that's something valuable. And we've done it on a smaller scale, but we're excited to see what that looks like, because I think this is a direction that we can move in our industry on some of the newer technologies in terms of, what I just saw a stupid shower in here that was 3x6. It looked like it had 5,000 cuts on it, right? Well, if you think of it in terms of planes and spaces, and it's lightweight and we can get in and out as quickly as possible. And I mean, Martin, you know, it's all about assembly lines and production, just efficiency. There's ways to be efficient and
Template.
modular. Like, let's get all this done at home, boys. Let's not get out here with.
So Aaron, you're talking
all of
about
this.
limiting exposure time on the job
Absolutely.
by basically templating, fabricating
Shop.
everything
Oh,
at your shop, and then bringing in, install in a few hours, and you're on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay.
So template.
Yeah.
No.
Which is it? Well, with
No?
the
I draw bro.
just the porcelain panels, right?
Right. That's a whole
Gotcha.
different game. Where Indiana's not even caught up to that yet.
Yeah.
So I live in a state of.
But
Don't
that's
be
something that
scared.
can be adapted. So,
Right.
Okay. Well, I think that we've covered everything as far as this actual CTI meeting. I really appreciate everybody's contributions. This was a good discussion. I think we
Got
all
some
learned a
big
lot.
dogs in here today, Joe.
I know.
Look at this, huh?
I know. They all requested. So
Mike, Martin, Scott, huh? Woody?
So I'm going to go ahead and end the recording.